Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, 2Game. 2Game are an official digital retailer where you can buy legit game keys, support the publisher, and get games cheaper on great deals. If you'd like to pay them a visit, the link will be in both the comment section and in the description. Yes, I did my Western Conference predictions already on the first channel, and there'll be a link in the comment section and in the description if you want to see that. But I went ahead and did the East on this channel because I always want my first channel to be evergreen topics, which means that you'd want to watch those videos now, and then a year from now you can still watch them and they'll be relevant. And obviously, if I'm making videos talking about the season, well, that's not evergreen. I think quick videos about the 2019 season are mostly going to go here because they're a lot easier to make and I can just kind of go through my thoughts pretty quickly after I watch a game. And plus, it just fits the whole barbershop talk experience a little bit more. So if you've seen the Western Conference video, you already know what I think about that. And then we have the East, which I actually think is more straightforward. Well, more straightforward until Jimmy Butler gets traded, because if you've been paying attention, he is like on the brink of being sent probably to the Eastern Conference. I think the teams that they've said that are really interested is like Cleveland, Miami, the Sixers, Toronto, the Clippers, teams like that, but mostly it's Eastern Conference teams. And in the Eastern Conference, it's already not that difficult this year, or I'm anticipating that it's not going to be that difficult to make an 8th seed. So if you're in the East and your team acquires Jimmy Butler, then barring any types of injuries, yeah, you're probably going to be in the playoffs. But right now, we're still trying to see what the deal is with that. We don't know if it's going to be like a 3-team deal or how many players are going to get traded, so all I can do is go off of the information that I have right now. So let's go ahead and start with the obvious. If the injury bug doesn't bite the Celtics in the first 6 minutes of this year's season, or it doesn't bite at all, they have no excuse not to be the best team in the Eastern Conference. And for those of you that have been watching me for a long time, it'd be really hard for you to call me biased right now because you know that I have never been this high on the Celtics. I've been on YouTube a couple of years now, and back when we had Isaiah Thomas, I was the one always saying we're not going that far. People would tell me I'm not a real fan because of that, and then we would end up not going that far. Even in the year that we made the Eastern Conference Finals, I was like, there's no way they're beating Cleveland, and that was just an embarrassing experience overall. But this year, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this is the most excited I've been for a Boston season, I would say since 2010. Even as today is media day and seeing the Celtics lined up and seeing Kyrie and Hayward back in the lineup and a new and improved Tatum, I'm assuming, and then Jaylen Brown and Horford, that just gets my blood going. Boston was already a great defensive team last year, and it's pretty obvious that the only reason they didn't make the finals is because they were missing both of their best offensive weapons. I'm pretty convinced that if they had either Hayward or Kyrie, they would have been in the NBA Finals. Whether they would have won it or not, probably not. But it doesn't change facts, because the facts are going through that playoff season, we were able to see so many other guys step up, including Terry Rozier and Jason Tatum. And the amazing thing about this is these are both great players now that don't have to play to the best of their capabilities all the time. Rozier has moved back to the bench, and he's already said the most important thing to him is winning. So Boston may not be more talented. Let me correct that. Boston is not more talented than Golden State because nobody is. But I feel comfortable saying that they are the deepest team in the NBA. They have at least 3 certified All-Stars in that lineup with Kyrie, Hayward, and Horford. Jason Tatum sooner or later is going to be an All-Star, or at least we can go ahead and say right now he's got All-Star potential, and then Brown is not far behind him with that. I've said a long time ago, as a matter of fact on the Hardwood Amino app, I wrote that they were the perfect young team of the future because when you look at it, all 5 positions can shoot, it's a positionless basketball team so they can switch everything. And they are really like, to me, they're like the baby Golden State Warriors. And I say that because it's the same team setup, right? Where all 5 guys on the team can shoot, multiple guys can play multiple positions. Basically, the thing that separates them is Golden State has a couple of more top 10 players, and then one of the greatest shooters of all time, and just in general 5 solidified All-Stars. So maybe Boston doesn't have that, but to be in the Eastern Conference, I feel pretty great about their chances getting out of it this year. So I don't want to make this whole video about Boston because I definitely could, but let's go ahead and move on. For the first time in, I'm going to say the first time since I've been a YouTuber probably, I'm actually high on the Raptors right now. That's another thing you know if you followed me long enough, is that I never believed in the Raptors. Last year, even as they were the first seed, I was still making jokes about them all the time because exactly what happened to them is pretty much what I said was going to happen. That was LeBron James's worst roster he's had this decade, and I still predicted that they were going to go on to beat the Toronto Raptors, albeit I did say it was probably going to be like 6 or 7 games and it turned out to be 4. But either way, I didn't think they were going to get past Cleveland, and they didn't. So they went ahead and started a rebuild, despite being first in the East, despite LeBron leaving. not a rebuild, but they went ahead and changed the core, right? Because they got rid of DeRozan and presumably they've upgraded for Kawhi. Nobody knows anything about Kawhi Leonard's injury. We don't know anything past the fact that it was a quad, and we have never really seen another player have that injury, so we don't really have a lot to go off of as in terms of how good is he going to be this year. We really don't know. He hasn't played in a while. But if he is Kawhi, like the Kawhi that was in MVP conversations, then the Raptors are in an amazing position this year, because that team was first in the East last year, and if Kawhi turns out to be what we want, they essentially just swapped DeMar for an MVP level player. And then on top of that, they got Danny Green to go with it, which nobody really mentioned, but that's not really a small deal. So they were a good team last year, and pending what happens to Kawhi, I'm expecting them to be great this year. And my way too early pick for the Eastern Conference Finals would be the Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. I think those are the best two teams in the East. Now let's talk about what might happen, because as I said earlier, the Raptors are in the hunt for Jimmy Butler. I don't know what that would require. I'm pretty sure Jimmy Butler is a really good player, so I'm assuming the Wolves are going to be asking for at least one really good player in return. I'm not sure if the Raptors are going to be interested in involving someone like Kyle Lowry in the trade that would land them Jimmy Butler. I really just have no clue what a package looks like right now, but man, if they get Jimmy and Kawhi on the same teams, oh, there's going to be some problems. Dealing with Kawhi Leonard's defense is one thing, but if you put Jimmy with him, offense isn't even the most exciting part about that. It'll be watching teams try to get past half court. That'll be the more entertaining thing there. But anyways, that's just what might happen. We have no clue yet, not even going to try to predict it. Right now, I'm definitely thinking the Raptors and the Celtics will be the best teams in the East. Not too far behind them, I'm looking at the Sixers, and the Sixers really disappointed me last year. Obviously, I'm happy that Boston beat them, but I had higher expectations for them, and maybe they were a little bit too high for a rookie. But as you know, if you saw my predictions, I thought without Kyrie and Hayward, I really thought the Sixers were going to the finals. I thought it was going to be a showdown between them and LeBron, and I thought they were going to be the new team in the East, at least while Boston was down and hurt, right? I thought that was going to be I thought it was going to be their throne for the time being. So now we're coming into this year, and the team didn't change a whole lot about the roster, but they're another team that's interested in Jimmy Butler. Not exactly sure what they would trade, but we know one thing for a fact. If they did get Jimmy Butler, they would 100% still have Simmons and Embiid. Obviously that would be amazing, but again, we're just going with what we have right now, and I have them not too far behind the Celtics and the Raptors. For them, it's just kind of like a wait and see thing, because you just have to me, they're kind of like the Jazz were in my Western Conference video, where I'm talking about you just have to wait and see their improvement. You just kind of have to wait and see the Sixers' improvement, because they didn't change a lot about the roster. So now we're looking at Simmons had an amazing, despite all the rookie jokes and whatever, his first year in the league was amazing. So now we're going to be looking at what did he add to his game, how him and Embiid mesh. But just from a pure talent standpoint, I would be expecting them to be no lower than the third best team in the East. But a team that I have more to say about would be the Indiana Pacers. First of all, we can go ahead and all take the L, because last year when they traded Paul George for Oladipo, we were all looking at Indiana crazy, and we were all wondering how they didn't get a better deal. And then Oladipo turned out to be one of the best young players in the league. But this summer, nobody's been paying attention to a couple of the moves that they've made. One really positive and underrated addition that they made is Tyreke Evans. He only played about 50 or 52 games last year, but for the time that he did play, he was having a decent season. So they've added him, and they've added Doug McDermott. And I thought both of those are great additions, because one of the things I was looking at when they were playing Cleveland in the first round, and what hurt them was just their scoring droughts. They were very capable of beating Cleveland, and they really had them on the ropes. But a lot of the times it just came down to, if Oladipo wasn't scoring and they just weren't hitting their threes, then there just wasn't a lot of points to go around. So these aren't trailblazers or anything. Tyreke Evans and McDermott, they're not like 20-point-a-game scorers, but Tyreke Evans definitely helps a bit with the scoring load, and McDermott is a decent shooter as well. So as where the Pacers weren't on my radar at all last year, I would definitely be looking at them as a top 4 team now. And now we come to the Milwaukee Bucks, who have also made the underrated addition of Brook Lopez. I call it underrated because it's just playing with the Bucks on 2K, you can already see how some of the schemes that they should be able to run in real life should make them a better team. We're all expecting Giannis to be a monster. We don't know if this is the year that he's going to finally pop into the MVP we're expecting, but now they are Giannis with a lot of shooters around him, including the center position, which is really important because Brook Lopez can knock it down. That was another team that disappointed me last year. I thought they were going to be better than 7th, and I even thought they were going to beat the Celtics. However, at this point, I don't really hold it against them for not beating Boston, because now, all these months later, I just realized even without Kyrie and Hayward, the Celtics were just a lot better team than people expected them to be. Because in the end, that's just how deep they are. Anyways, I'm definitely looking for improvement for the Bucks because at a certain point, Giannis is definitely still young, but I think he's starting to get into that. He's starting to get into the expectation part of his career, right? Because it's been happening in phases. When we first saw him and we saw his build, we were like, oh wow, this guy is going to be a monster one day. When he adds some like real skill and when he learns a few things, he's going to be a monster. So he's got to that monster level, but maybe it's because he's really quiet and low key and he plays in Milwaukee. But there's never been any expectation surrounding them. Well, save for the time that Charles Barkley said they were going to go to the finals, I think after like the first time they made the playoffs. But aside from that, they're just immune to criticism most of the time. And that's going to change sooner or later because Giannis is stepping up in the ranks. When you start talking about top 10 player, that's when people really start looking for you to make moves. So looking at the Bucks, who should be a good defensive team and a good offensive team, you're going to get a full season with Bledsoe. I'm definitely expecting some improvements from them as well. So now we look at the Wizards, who are getting pretty far into the John Wall era. I would say he's another one of those players that's, well, not another, because he's actually been around since what, like 2011? And we're now on to the 2019 season, and the Wizards have never really made that many strides. I think there was the year in, what, 2017, where we were looking for them to possibly go to the conference finals. So now they've made a move, which is, I mean, when you look at most of their free agent signings over the last few years, I would guess you would say Dwight Howard is one of the biggest moves they've made in a really long time, right? The thing about Dwight is that he carries a negative stereotype around. People don't really like him. People think he's a clown, and he hasn't really played anywhere where there's been a lot of eyes lately, so no one's ever paying attention to him. However, he had a good season last year. He's still a double-double guy, still averaging 16 and 12. And he's still a pretty good defender as well. So this isn't like him joining the Hornets, and this isn't like him joining the Hawks, because now he's joining a team that was already a playoff team, and I'm saying that they upgraded at the center position. He's definitely he's a better center than Gortat. I'm not putting too much expectations on them because this is obviously not Dwight Howard from any time in recent All-Star memory. That's not the Dwight we're really looking for this year, but it's an upgrade. And the thing about the East this year is now I'm on Team 6. The thing about them is they're not really going to be fighting that hard for a playoff spot because it's actually kind of a struggle to name 8 teams that are definitely going to be in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Because you look at a team like the Heat and they were pretty good last year, but they're just one of those middle of the road teams to me, right? They're like good enough to make the playoffs, but not good enough to make any real noise. Now that could easily change because apparently last night, I mean, it seems like you've seen a report that Jimmy Butler is going to like every team, but apparently the Heat popped up as a team that has a really strong chance to land him. And that would change quite a bit because then they go from a team that just is kind of really middle of the road to a team in the Eastern Conference that can make some noise depending on who they give up for them. But even then, that leaves us with 7 teams, and now you're at the point where the Cavaliers, we're assuming, have at least dropped to the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They were already not that good of a team, and with LeBron James, most people would say they're not going to make the playoffs. But as of today, before Jimmy Butler gets traded anywhere, that A spot is wide open. And to be honest, they did something I didn't think they were going to do. They were able to hang on to Kevin Love. And I remember Kevin Love from back in the day when he wasn't just a spot-up shooter. So I am definitely looking to keep an eye on him and where he can lead this Cavs team because I'm also like, Colin Sexton doesn't seem like he's going to be that bad of a rookie either. But again, that's one of those things that we absolutely won't know until we actually get some basketball. If we were just looking at it logically, I would say that A spot actually has a really good chance to go to the Pistons. They were definitely having a tough go of it last year with Reggie Jackson and his ankle injury, but the latest report is that he's fully healed. And now they're going to get a full season with him and then Blake Griffin on the roster with Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin is not what he used to be. He's not the super high flyer all the time, one of the top power forwards in the NBA, undisputed. He's really not at that level anymore, but he's still a 21 point per game scorer. So it's really just going to have to do with if he can stay healthy because health has been Blake Griffin's problem for a really long time now. He hasn't been able to cross the 70 game mark since 2014. Wow, I cannot believe it's been that long. Played 58 games last year. Got hurt in the playoffs one of those years with the Clippers, and that's a big reason that they were out in the first round. So health is a big question with them. But from where I'm looking at it, if I was doing official standings, I would say that the Pistons, I think they're good for the playoffs this year, and then I would put Cleveland as my sleeper team. And I didn't mention it in my Western Conference video, but I actually had the Mavericks as a sleeper team. I just didn't get to talking about them, but I had the Mavericks there. But the way I am with rookies is I'm just like, let's just wait and let me see them play professional basketball. I never pump up rookies. I get excited to see them play, but I never pump them up and say they're gonna take this team this place, because it's literally like playing the lottery. A guy can be amazing at any level and then come to the NBA and just be a role player. So for all we know, Colin Sexton isn't gonna be that great. Luka Doncic might be a role player. We don't even have a clue. We can go off of what we've seen and say what might happen. But when I'm talking about these standings, I'm like, oh, let's just wait and see. Because for Cleveland, that's what it's contingent on for me. It's how good Sexton turns out and how well he meshes with Love. I think that's what will determine how far that team goes. And I'm not counting it on Tristan Thompson saying that he's going to be the guy to lead them to the playoffs this year. That's not where I'm putting my money. So anyways, those are the 8 teams that I think are making the playoffs this year. I am excited to see this because now there's no LeBron James, so I think coming into every other season, we've always been able to say LeBron's going to dominate it and go to the finals, and that's what's always happened. But for the first time ever, LeBron James is not in the Eastern Conference, which means his streak that he's held since 2011 of being an Eastern Conference champion is no more. We're going to have a new team. I think the East has a couple of contending teams. Well, contending as in if something happened to the Warriors. Like, I really don't think there's a match for the Warriors. A true match in a 7-game series. I don't think the Warriors have one of those. But if we're talking about teams that you would traditionally call a contender, I think we have a couple with Boston and Toronto. And depending on how good the Sixers get, maybe even them. Then after them, we've got a couple of younger developing teams. So it's definitely not the worst Eastern Conference we've seen, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. And if you haven't already gotten your hands on 2K19, and you want to see a simulation of what this season might look like, the sponsor of this video, 2Game, can help you with that. 2Game are an official digital retailer where you can buy legit game keys, support the publisher, and get games cheaper on great deals. If you'd like to pay them a visit, the link will be in both the comment section and in the description. And that'll be all for today's video. Let me know what you think about the Eastern Conference in the comments below. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.